what's slightly mind-blowing, what I haven't quite wrapped my head around, is the thought that somebody at Netflix HQ on the 21st of October will, I like to think they pull a lever, and then it's just everywhere. So it's like in every country except like North Korea and China. It's literally everywhere but there.
Something just struck me, which is that now that the show has gravitated to Netflix, most of the people watching are going to be rating it out of 5 as soon as they've finished.
I know.
Right. Well, we've kind of got the battle of the auteurs here. Joe and Charlie, here we go. It's difficult to know which of you to start with, really. But perhaps I can bring you both in at the same time. And Annabelle, you can also feed us your thoughts on how the collaboration kind of took place. You said to me earlier that this was a long-standing idea. It wasn't something that's just come up now that we've got Uber ratings and things like that, but something that you kind of dreamed up quite a while ago, and it's almost as if technology has caught up with you.
Well, I guess, I mean, basically, yes. A couple of years ago, we had an experience of going to Hollywood and sort of pitching ideas around for movies. And I'd had this idea for a kind of Brewster's Millions story, in which somebody of very high status, set in a sort of status economy, somebody of very high status gets blackmailed into shredding their own reputation in...
Can you get closer to the mic, please?
Oh my, can you not hear me? You can hear me now! Shall I say everything I just said at this volume? Okay. I'm going to sit closer. Yeah. But I'm glad you said that. I thought it was going to be a death threat. Fuck you! Thank you. Yes. So, you can hear, is this the right level? So, yeah, a couple of years ago, we were trying to pitch movie ideas, and we'd had this idea for a Brewster's Millions style story about somebody who has a high reputation in a world in which reputation is ranked, and they have to shred it against the clock. They're blackmailed into it. And then the idea was that then becomes a kind of Charlie Sheen style situation where the more outrageous they shit in front of a primary school, and after you've done that 10 times, you become a cult hero, apparently. But it felt like it was kind of the story just repeated itself. Once you've shat in front of one primary school, you're just doing bigger shits in front of bigger schools. And so I kind of didn't know what to do with it. And then Uber came along, and one day I was sitting I got in an Uber, and this driver was really moaning about somebody had given him evidently marked him down, and he figured he'd worked out who it was. And I thought he may well go and kill that person, because he probably could work out where they live. And so it just sort of went in and rolled around a bit late and came out as that.
And presumably there are many episodes you could have sent to Joe. What about this one in particular did you think would fit with Joe? And Joe, did you agree immediately that this was exactly the one?
Didn't know that it would fit. Oh, we can't hear you either.
It's me, it's my turn.
We all have to do this.
Right. The question was, what about this particular episode was it that they thought Joe Wright's the man for this? And did Joe agree, yes, this is exactly what I want to do?
I think we knew that, it would really benefit from someone who had a strong sense of vision and style and could make it feel like its own unique world. And so Joe was obviously the first person to go to for that. And we sent Joe the script, and he, I think, didn't think it was too bad. And so we met and we talked about it, and I think some of the material resonated, and Joe kindly agreed to do it.
I am a deeply insecure person. And I am constantly looking for validation from other people to make me feel better. It's probably why I'm a film director. And I had just suffered a crushing humiliation with a gigantic film I'd made for Warner Brothers, and the critics had slaughtered me. and I was taking it very personally, and they were rating me 1 star all over the place. And so yeah, it resonated.
The people we've missed out in this little analysis are your screenwriters. So you have 2 on this one. Some of the episodes in the past have been written by people other than yourself, but how does that work? How do you kind of develop the idea with them, and does it happen? You know, do you send them an idea? Or?
Well, no. It's just very collaborative. You all muck in effectively. So I can't entirely remember. We just did a lot of sort of Skyping sessions and like kind of low-tech conference calls and emails, just sort of endless fucking yabbering, basically. I mean, I'd written up a sort of story treatment that was pretty detailed. So there was, and then there was sort of we went through and altered it. It's kind of hard to. It's quite a boring process, writing, really. But I don't really know what to add to that. It's quite a dull process, writing things.
Oh, that's not right.
Yes,
when you have the privilege of working with Mike Sher and Rashida Jones, it's not dull.
No, that bit's not dull. I mean, the actual fucking typing.
Oh yeah, that's dull. No, we had the story outline, and Mike and Rashida had said that they were fans of the show, and we sort of thought, well, we didn't believe that, so we challenged them and asked them if they wanted to write it, and they did. So yeah.
And then what happens? I mean, and then often what happens is then we've got a script, and then what kind of wasn't in the script really was the whole. There's a whole sort of visual layer that wasn't really described at all in the script. So the whole look and the tone of everything is something that then also that Joe comes in and sort of feeds in, because you can't. That's the sort of stuff I remember seeing when I first saw the rushes, and I thought, this is either going to work or it's mental. Do you know what I mean? And then as soon as you see it all coming together, I was flabbergasted. That's always the sort of best possible outcome. Yeah, I'm leaning nervously into this microphone in case any more people shout at me.
So where Joe came in, and also presumably you just demanded you had to have your amazing cinematographer, Seamus McGarvey, on this, who just does such a beautiful job on it. It must just be the sort of most exquisitely shot episode that you've had of this show. But also other members of your kind of regular team, I guess, costume people.
Yeah. Can I just say, I think Be Right Back was one of the most exquisitely shot episodes, and so was Entire History of You, and I think they've all been very cinematic, and that's a rubbish word. They've all been beautiful. I got Seamus in. I mean, I kind of have a core group of collaborators that I always work with, and they come along, you know, and it just seemed like a good thing to do. Sarah Greenwood wasn't available, but Katie was, and an art director that we work with was available, so he stepped up. Various members of our team who are kind of assistants, or, you know, they stepped up a bit, so that was a good way of giving them a break as well.
It feels like a dystopia that thinks it's a utopia, basically, or is pretending it is. It must have been really fun to imagine that with the kind of pastels and all of that. It looks like it was fun.
Yeah, Joel Collins, who is the designer of the whole series, and perhaps, you know, definitely deserves a mention, possibly the unsung hero of the show. He had found this horrific gated community in South Africa. I can't remember what it was called, but basically so he'd found that as either where she was from or where she was going, and what I did was take that and decide that the whole world was like that. I spent some time kind of between Los Angeles and San Diego which is a kind of sprawling mass of suburbia where they all do yoga and drink green juices and vote Republican. And it's a world I have a bit of a hard time getting my head around. So the idea is it's there. It's that road there.
As Charlie kind of suggested at the beginning, pushing the comedy does feel quite unusual for the show. But because you've got 6 episodes, I think, in the new season, you feel as though you've got more scope to play around a bit more with the tone? And
overall, I think overall in the across the season, we've got more variety of tone. Because we're doing 6 stories this time around, we wanted to not always fling you into a pit of despair. Sometimes we kick a few fucking hope biscuits at you on your way down. Having said that, there are stories in which we do fling you into a pit of despair and then piss on you. Because people seem to like that. But we didn't want to do that all the time, so we wanted to kind of broaden the scope of the show in general. And it's interesting because I think in the early stages of this, we saw it, I was seeing it initially primarily very much as a sort of comedic story, and then I think there's an additional degree of poignancy that's come in from from Joe's direction and from and from Bryce and from Alice and the whole cast who put in amazing performances and really gave it, again, sort of brought the whole thing, gave it extra dimensions beyond that which I was expecting. It's one of those things that that's quite humbling and good. I never say nice things.
I mean, Joe has a very strong track record with female protagonists in your films, but it feels like Lacey is up there with the best of them, actually. A really remarkable character.
Yeah, I love Lacey. And I feel a kind of tender heartbreak towards her. And I think it was a bit of a masterstroke of intuition, really, to suddenly think, I know who should play this, Bryce. I say that, the intuition, because I hadn't seen her for 10 years. We met, I met her for Atonement, and she was completely wrong for that role, but I loved her. And I thought one day I'm going to work with her. And then this script came in, and she was the ideal person for it. She's a little bit like Lacey. Not too much. Not too much. But she's a proper... The thing about Bryce, love, is that she's a proper actress. You know, she spent years at her youth on the stage at Steppenwolf Theatre in New York, and she's not someone who's come into it and thinks, oh, I can just do this and this is easy. She's really worked, and she's a grafter, and I think we both she's a bit of a soulmate, really, Bryce.
Annabelle, perhaps you could take us back to the very beginning of the show. I mean, it's always been an unusual format in terms of the sort of gaps between seasons and things, and my assumption was probably you were waiting each time to see what fresh hell the Apple developers would come up with that you could work with, but I don't think it was like that, right? And it's now, this is now the 7th episode, you've got 14 in total coming up. Did you expect it to last so long, and how has it been kind of working with Charlie this whole time?
Harrowing. The gaps in between seasons, probably just due to other projects that we were doing. So less us waiting for new technology to, in the Nosedive example, we were rushing to get out when Uber arrived, and we were like, oh my God, we're too late, So I don't think we're in any way dictated by technology. You just sort of, when you're ready to do a next series, you do. And thankfully, Netflix loved the show and stepped in and commissioned 6 films. So that allows us to play out on a bigger canvas and to take more risks and explore more worlds without destabilizing the Black Mirror sensibility. So it's great, and I think we've got another season coming up too.
And you're not constrained in terms of running time to the sort of prescribed Channel 4 thing with breaks anymore. You can run as long as you like, and one of them is feature length among the new batch. Is that right?
Yeah, we've got one of our episodes which is called Hated in the Nation, and it's kind of a Black Mirror Scandi noir.
Yeah.
Effectively, and it's set in London, and that stars Kelly MacDonald, and it's 90 minutes. It's like a movie, and it's about online anger. So it's a feel-good fable. But yeah, we could do 2-hour episodes or 2-minute episodes, although a 2-minute episode would be shit.
In a second, I'm going to throw it all open to you guys. Hopefully you'll have some questions. And I think we've got roving mics. If you wouldn't mind waiting for those.
Hold them close to your mouth.
Hold them, yeah.
I'll shout at you.
Scream down them as loud as possible. One last question, though, about the sort of shift onto the Netflix way of doing things. Do you feel as though anything is being lost in terms of the communality of everyone watching it at the same time when it was first aired on Channel 4, or are you gaining more from the kind of expanded possibilities of just like flexibility, you can watch it whenever you like?
I think that anthology shows like this have been waiting really for a platform like Netflix or streaming services in general to come along, because we don't have cliffhangers and we don't have recurring cast members or characters. So really, shows that reinvent themselves every week have struggled in the ratings, and ratings were the king for years. The only other way to drum up support for your show would be to run lots of trails, which risked blowing the story. But on Netflix, we can put the whole thing up, and it's kind of like a short story collection, or an album, or tickets to a film festival, or some other wanky allegory I could come up with that it's like. And what's slightly mind-blowing, what I haven't quite wrapped my head around, is the thought that somebody at Netflix HQ on the 21st of October I like to think they pull a lever, and then it's just everywhere. So it's like in every country except like North Korea and China. It's literally everywhere but there, like that. And so I think now water cooler chat, there's more of it. It doesn't necessarily happen in sync with the moment. If you think of things like, I don't know, Fleabag would be a good example. That's something that I haven't watched yet, and I feel dereliction of duty because everyone's telling me to do it. Stranger Things was another one. Sometimes these things get picked up, and that's where the water cooler chat happens now, if it's not about Bake Off.
And you still get to show it in contexts like this as well with 700 people, which is pretty great.
Yeah, that's all right, isn't it?
It takes me about 2 years to make a film, and it took me about 4 months to make this. So in my heart, they occupy very different places just because of the experience I had making them. And also you get a lot less money to make this. So the detail is less. You can't be as detailed. Also, that sound mix is mixed for television, and so especially sound suffers on TV. You can't immerse, you can't give that immersive soundscape that I love playing with so much in the movies. But they're different, but they're also equally important. I really needed this show to wash out the experiences that I'd been having and to freshen up a bit and to remind myself what working on a small budget was like. That was really good for me. So they're all kind of special and different, really.
Not necessarily, but we do. We have got a bigger canvas. Effectively, it is more global, and the running time you don't have to cut it for ad breaks, and you don't have to cut it to sort of 43 minutes. So, for instance, we've done a feature-length episode that's 90 minutes without a break. We couldn't do that on commercial television. So that's one example. In terms of the episode order, we've had because we could go in any order. So we've literally been banging our heads against the wall trying to work that out. And I don't know that the order's been confirmed yet. We've drawn up about 5,000 different ones. So it will be confirmed before it goes out. They don't have shuffle mode on Netflix. But you can watch them in any order. So, and what has happened with previous seasons is that people have kind of compiled their own order in a way, depending on, everyone has a different favourite and a different least favourite. So it'll be interesting to see what people do.
I think we originally were thinking this is a very idealized world, a very sort of artificial world, and so we sort of thought sunshine would help in that sort of picturing of the ideal.
So Scotland was out.
I'm so sorry, Scotland.
Yeah, I think that's fair comment. I mean, in a way, the same story could occur in almost any country, but. There's a... Sorry? Dundee. Actually, I have been to Dundee. That's where the Grand Theft Auto people used to be. Why did I bring that up? But it's got a slight kind of... For me, it's got a slight kind of Truman Show sort of tone. You know, there is something... There's a cloying artificiality to the world that... It's not really America. It's like it's like, as Joe was describing, it's like a heightened, nauseating slice of America, which felt fitting. We've got an episode that's set in Hounslow.
Yeah, it rains in that one.
Yeah. That really is probably a question for Joe, because I didn't hear music when we were like talking about the script. I didn't hear the music, but I think you very early on you mentioned Max Richter, who did the score for this. You were sort of right in there with him.
I was just a fan of Max, and I wanted an opportunity to meet him, so it seemed like this was a good opportunity. He was supposed to be here tonight, but one of his kids is ill. But yeah, I loved the Blue Notebooks. It was an album that I'd played on set a lot, and you know, Sleep and so on. So yeah, I just wanted to meet him. I'm very fortunate in my job that I can do that. I really like this composer. I want to meet them. That happens. It's great.
We've got some. I mean, we have got for this season. We've got some particularly great composers. We've got Max's score is fantastic, and again adds a whole extra layer. For those of you who are sticking around later, there's an episode San Junipero, which is directed by Owen Harris, who did Be Right Back as well, and the score for that has been done by Clint Mansell, who did Moon and Requiem for a Dream and all sorts of movies.
Just to add to that, you were down on your sound mix, but the sound design is great in this episode, I think. I love how each star rating has its own separate kind of ping, and how the ping becomes incorporated into Max's score at the end, really cleverly.
Yeah, that was an idea that, I mean, I kind of like incorporating spot sounds within the score, did it with the typewriter and Atonement, and kind of applied the same idea to this. But the technology is, when we did the edit of the film and we sent it to Charlie, and I expected, you know, Charlie almost writes, it seems, the emotional stuff, not really thinking about it. It's the technology that you seem to focus on a lot. So you'd get notes back on one of the cuts, and all the notes would be about technology. And you go like, what about the moment when she reveals that she was bulimic, and how do you feel? How does that make? And it's all about the technology and whether the operating system is believable or not.
That's because I'm a robot.
Yeah. Whereas what you do is you write these amazingly emotional stories that are the important, thing for me. So it's great. I liked the emotion. Charlie liked the technology. He could do the technology, and I did the emotion.
It sort of came about when we'd done Dead Set, which was a sort of zombie Big Brother mashup, which we'd done, and after that had gone sufficiently well that we were asked to come up with something else. And I'd always loved shows like The Twilight Zone, Hammer House of Horror, Tales of the Unexpected, and all the weird and wonderful sort of one-off plays that the BBC used to put on. And I felt like the trend was very much at the time for sort of 5-season arcs. For shows I loved, like Breaking Bad and Mad Men and so on, but it felt like those kind of what-the-fuck stories didn't really have a place on television anymore. So it was sort of that, really, more than... We don't, when we're making the show, we're quite often asked, what's the message you're trying to convey? And I'm like, because I don't have the solution to anything, because I'm an idiot. So it's kind of primarily the intention was to create a show that gave you that frisson that you get when you watch something like The Wicker Man or a particularly nasty Twilight Zone or Threads or anything that provokes a strong reaction in people. I think that was...
Yeah, and I think the lovely thing about doing an anthology is that you have the freedom to be able to tell lots of different stories, hopefully always through a sort of Black Mirror prism, but what we try to do is sort of thrill and scare and titillate and worry, but primarily, hopefully through a playful story, or a story that... Well, sometimes the ideas are quite preposterous. Sometimes Charlie will come up with a ridiculous high concept idea, and our challenge is to take that idea and try and root it into a very personal drama so that it feels very grounded, so that you're engaged emotionally with the characters as well as feeling challenged by the ideas. So that's what we try to do.
Well, one reason is that we do have a driverless car in a different story. So A, you're trying to avoid that. And B, they're a fucking nightmare. Because they don't really exist properly yet. So high concept driverless cars, you have to use CGI, or you have to... The pragmatic reason is they're a pain in the arse. And I don't know why else. We did discuss it.
We couldn't afford them.
We couldn't afford them, yeah. Otherwise... Because she could be, although she could just lie down. I mean, driverless cars are going to really change things. I'll be able to I can't drive, so I'm banking on driverless cars. That's why. They're too expensive. I usually laugh. I'm usually laughing when we're sort of discussing the initial ideas. If we know we've got a good Black Mirror idea, if I'm laughing and Annabelle's going, that's horrible. Roughly.
Yeah, that torture seems to work. Yeah.
But it's sort of, that's when we know that it's sort of working. I think I'm quite optimistic about technology actually, because which you wouldn't get necessarily from the show, but I'm quite a dweeb. I like my video games. I like, I'm an early adopter of stupid electric toothbrushes and that sort of nonsense. I got a toothbrush the other day that it required me to set up an account. And I thought, that means there's probably in Russia somewhere there's a database of which teeth I'm doing. So I think it's kind of therapeutic. I worry about everything, but I find it's the same muscle, though, in comedy writing. Because really, a lot of our stories are a kind of worst-case scenario unfolding, which is the same as something like Fawlty Towers. That's a man being tormented in the middle of a sort of worst-case scenario that's constantly getting worse. So I think I just like that.
don't think I could ever say that in public. No, they're exactly like children. I think they all do very different things. You know, some of them are incredibly poignant and beautiful, and some of them are harrowing and challenging and thought-provoking. So they're all so different. You can't compare them, I think.
Something we've done, actually, which we've done with previous seasons, but very much we were consciously doing it in this season, was we were almost imagining we were creating different genre mini-movies. So if this one is a satire, it's a kind of poignant satire, we've also got a detective movie, and we've got like an outright horror movie, one of them is, and one is a romance. So, as Annabelle was saying, they're so different, it's kind of like comparing different... Which is your favourite toe?
That's easy.
Which is your favourite toe?
The little one.
What?
The little one.
It's rubbish, the little one.
No, it's not. This is like one of our development meetings.
Sorry. This is what it's like in our office all the time. Well, they needed that money for that tent. It's quite interesting, put it that way. I would say the account that appeared of what happened, somebody didn't come out and wave a check and we ran away from Channel 4 towards it, put it that way. So it's been interesting watching that one play out, basically. I mean, we still talk to Channel 4. We haven't like broken off friends with them. But that seems particularly odd, what happened there with the Bake Off. If you told me at the start of the year that at this time, that by October in 2016, half our cultural icons would be dead, and we'd have voted to leave the EU, and Donald Trump would be hovering near the White House, and the Bake Off won't even be on BBC One anymore, I'd have been digging a fucking bunker.
None. Sarah's actually there, so you can hound her afterwards. We're the same thing, really, Sarah and I, and we don't separate our aesthetics at all, really. Sarah didn't design this one. But Katie Spencer, set decorator on all our movies, did the set deck, which was lovely to spend some time with her without Sarah. And I don't really know what to say. It's a conversation that happens, it's all just a conversation. And it's not, rather like these two. You need to find people who you like talking to, and then just keep talking to them. And that way you'll find your way through. Do you know what I mean? It's just about talking and actually listening as well. That's really important. Yeah, that's it.